Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at BTC. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Okay, before we jump into the lower degree counts here, we're going to talk about a couple of the ideas that we are looking for on the higher time frame. Now, within the idea that we are still within a bigger corrective structure, still keeping an eye out for the potential that we could see something along these lines, where actually what we have here is that this whole move here is a completed corrective wave as an A wave, and we are looking for this B wave to the upside. Now, this B wave typical zones that we look for is this 786 to this 50%, which is this orange box area here. Now, however, it is also possible that we could see price actually look to form an overshooting B wave, in which case this higher target box area would actually come into play. So we'd need to be on the lookout for any kind of a three wave move up into this level. Now, if we are looking at this as a bigger B wave here, what I want to just throw on here is a time relationship to this A wave over here. And what I'd like to see ideally that this B wave crosses at least this 0.382 line here, which would be towards the 25th of October. So what we want to see is that this B wave would actually look to develop over a bigger time period here to get some kind of a better time relationship to this A wave over here. And typically speaking, we like to see this 0.382 level getting hit. Now within this, like I said, we could be looking at this as a bigger B wave here, where we could be looking for a higher move up into this zone, or alternatively this orange box area. So we need to just keep an eye on this. If we start to develop 5-wave moves to the downside, then the probability starts to become higher that we are actually looking for the C wave to play out. Now, depending on how high we come here, this will change this target off of our current high here. 1-to-1 would actually be 23,516, and then we have all the way down to this 1.618 here at this 20,842. This would be a zone I'd be looking for potential reactions. Obviously, we got some levels in here that we'd have to keep an eye on if we do start to see this break down from this point here and this B wave's completed, but we would need to see that 5-wave move to the downside starting. Until we do, this move could be looking to actually develop to the upside in a more corrective way. So we're going to go over this idea of this B wave actually looking to extend up here, and what we would then be talking about is something along these lines. So we're actually going to come in a bit closer here and discuss this move. Now, within this idea here, what we'd be saying is that actually this is our low and we have this as an A wave. We're looking for a B wave and a C wave to the upside. Now, within this, the most common target area for a B wave is this 50% to the 786. But what I want to see here is whether we actually get another push to the downside. I'm looking out for the potential here that we could see this move actually push down one more time in this ABC move, where what we'd say is that this is an A wave, we have this as a flat correction, and we're going to start to build another 5-wave move to the downside. We can see here within this idea here that this 1-to-1 is sitting quite nicely here towards this 26659, and that would then also align with coming back down into that 50% level, which would be this top blue line here. So if we do see something like this, this could align quite nicely with some of these other levels that we are looking at here. So if we do just see price actually move down one more time here in a C wave, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this zone here of this 26,679 as a potential zone that we could get a reaction off of this low here if we're going to see something like a swing failure. However, if we do start to see price pushing down past this 25,836, then we need to be aware of the other options here, where what we could actually start to form is that this could become 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that could be a part of the next structure to the downside starting to develop. So we need to be very careful of that idea that if we move past 25,836, this could be part of a bigger breakdown that's actually looking to play out. Now, one of the other ways that we are discussing this structure is saying that potentially within this move, we could have this as a bigger impulse to the downside, which is looking to actually play out. And this is why we need to get back above 31,804 to actually invalidate this idea. Because if we're going to take this as a 5-wave move into this low here, what we could then have here is we just have a 3-wave move completed, and we could start to break down in a bigger 3rd wave. Now, that 3rd wave target off of our current high would be 19,780. So if we do start to see 5-wave structure developing to the downside here, we need to be careful that until we start to break highs, we could start to develop a bigger move to the downside here, looking for this lower target of this 19,780. If we do see a price movement down towards this zone, I would be then anticipating a 4th and a 5th looking to play out. So within this idea of the breakdown here, what we'd be saying is, once again, it is possible that this could still be within this bigger wave 2 here, where this actually just becomes A, we get B, and then we get C, and we still look to push up higher into this target box area. But we have had a rejection off of this 50% level. So I'm just being mindful that if this is the case here, and we have this as a bigger ABC pattern, or actually in this case it would be WX and a Y up into this point, this could then facilitate the possibility of seeing this bigger breakdown starting to develop. Now, if we're going to see something like that actually play out, what we'd be looking for more locally here is for price to actually start to break to the downside. And what we'd want to see is an impulse to the downside starting to develop. And what we'd see here is that effectively what we could potentially say here is that this is 1, we have this as a 2, and we're looking for the next leg to the downside. Now, obviously, we discussed that possibility that this could just be A, B, C, in which case we could find support here and start to see a rally. Or alternatively, within this idea, we'd be looking for that bigger breakdown for this 25,731. Now, that would be based off of this current high that we've got here. If we did see another move up here, not taking this high up here of this 28,580, we could potentially then see this move continue down. However, if we take this high here, this would invalidate this potential, and then we'd be looking at one of the other moves to play out. Now, within this idea, like I said, we're looking for this wave 3, so we'd want to see price starting to break down from these levels. We have rejected off of this 0.786, and we need to see this target come in. If we do see this hit, we'll be looking for a 4th and a 5th down towards this 25,547 to this 25,248. Now, the problem is if we do get a 5-wave move like this, this would then potentially become the first leg of the next move down, where this becomes wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or alternatively A, B, and C, if this is going to be W, X, and Y. So we need to just be very careful that if we start to develop 5-wave structure down, this could just indicate that we are going to see price starting to form these next bearish moves to the downside here, where we could be looking for a bigger sell-off. So that's what I'm looking out for within this idea of this impulse. Like I said, it is still possible. We could see something like this and see price look to actually push up one more time here. If we do see price actually find support in this zone of this 50% to the 786, which would be 26,672 to this 25,898, we could potentially then see a 5-wave move to the upside developing, where this becomes A, B, and C, which could push us all the way up towards this 30,046 at this 1.236, or alternatively up towards this 29,207. So that would be looking at this just as a corrective move, where this starts from here, where we'd say this is W, X, Y, this becomes our A. We're looking for a B wave. And now the most common zone we look for is this blue box, but I would also be open to the idea that if we do see a bigger breakdown and we see this low get swept, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this 2533 to this 24356 to see if we get a reaction in this zone where this becomes a bigger A, B, and a C as a flat correction, where we look to sweep the liquidity below this low here before seeing a pushback up, looking to actually take that liquidity back above these highs. So need to be open to these ideas. If we do see this B wave start to develop down, does it hold this blue box? If it doesn't, I'm going to be looking lower down here. If, however, we start to see that bigger impulsive structure down, then we could be looking for that 3rd wave to start. Now, one of the other ways that we discussed this move actually happening was saying that if we do complete into this high over here, what we could see is that this could actually just be a bigger A, B, and a C move here, where either we can say that this is ABC into here, and this is where our A wave is, or alternatively, this is A into this point here as a 5-wave move, we get B and C. Now, the idea would be the same here. If we do see a push down, what I would be looking for is a potential interaction with this 1-to-1 level, which is currently sitting here towards this zone of this 22,626. Now, if we do see this C wave starting to develop, like I said, what we'd be looking for here is that idea of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where we'd be saying that effectively here, we're looking for this white count to play out, where we want to see a move down towards 25,731 to confirm this idea. If this does happen, that could then become wave 1. We see wave 2, 3, 4, 5 looking to push us down into this zone. Within this idea, what I'd be looking for is the potential of a flat correction here, where we say this is A, this is B, and actually this is a C wave. Now, the only way we can currently look at this as a C wave, because of how choppy and overlapping this is that potentially we'd have to look at this as a diagonal pattern. Now, we're going to come back in here. If this is a diagonal pattern, what we'd be saying is that this would be our wave 1, This would be our wave 2. We'd be looking at this as our wave 3. This is our wave 4. Now, it is possible here that we could argue that this wave 4 is actually going to play out slightly different here, where, like I said, we could have this as A, B, and we're going to see a C wave to the downside. The problem is with this, if this fourth wave hasn't completed at this 27,175, there isn't a lot of room because we're not allowed to cross this 27,027 level. If we do cross this zone, this would invalidate the idea of this being a diagonal pattern, and then we would be looking at one of the other options. If, however, we continue to hold this low here at this 27,167, what we could see is we could actually see this ABC move play out through the upside here, where we would be looking for price to actually hold this support box. Now, we have come down already between this 0.382 to this 50% level. We haven't quite come down into this lower range, which we typically look for. But if we do look to push down, the one-to-one of this is A, B, and C would actually push us down towards 27,645, which is not far off of this 0.618 level. So I'll be keeping an eye on this. If we do see price actually look to either form this as an A, we get a B, and then we get a C down, or alternatively, this just becomes a bigger A, B, and a C pattern. Also, I will be looking out for this trend line, which is sitting directly below us towards this 27,400, which would align quite nicely with this 786 level. If we do see price looking to come back in here, this could also be looking to retest this area that has been previous resistance and previous support here. So we could potentially look for a flip here if we're going to see, price looking to push to the upside. The idea within this as a diagonal pattern would be that we're going to see 3 waves up, where we see this as A, B, and C. Now, like I said, if we do see price come back down here one more time, this 27,027 is going to be our line in the sand. And if we do see something more like this, where we see this as a bigger A, B, and a C, we'd have to actually stop this structure towards this 0.618, where this becomes A, B. We see a very short C wave here. Otherwise, it would actually look to invalidate that diagonal pattern, because if I throw this on here, we can see that 27,027 is just beyond this 0.618. So if we do look past that, then the idea of this being a diagonal actually invalidates, and we would be looking for one of the other counts to play out. Now, with this actually develops just as ABC, this could just be part of that corrective structure, like we said, where this is actually a bigger A, a B, and then we see a bigger C wave to the upside. Alternatively, this becomes an A, we get a B wave up, and then we see a C wave down, and then we could still look for that push to the upside. The only way that I would be looking for this to actually confirm a bigger move down here would be to see a move past this 25,731. Anything above that could actually indicate we still have another leg up here, where we could look to push up into some of those higher rejection areas that we discussed earlier. So within this, like I said, there is a couple of possibilities here that we could still see some downside price action come in here, both within these ideas where this could be a impulse to the downside, as well as this being a ABC in this way. Or alternatively, even if we do look at this with this B wave, we could still see this come in. However, until we actually start to break these lows, we need to be very careful of the potential here that if this move has actually completed into this low over here, we could be looking for a bigger rally to the upside. Now, I don't like looking at this A wave as completing into this low here just because of the internals. It doesn't make a lot of sense if it completes here, but I'm open to the interpretation that if price action to the upside proves itself, we could actually be looking at a bigger move here. Now, the idea of this being a big impulsive move would actually be looking at the structure in 2 ways. Once again, we discussed the idea of the diagonal here, where we're saying that what we could have is that this move here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get ABC, and that looks to complete the move. From that point, this low is going to be very important here, this 24,901. If we see 3 waves up here and we complete this idea of the diagonal, if this is a flat, we want to see price move down and take this 24,900. If we fail to do so and we get 3 waves to the downside again, then effectively what we could have here is that this whole move here could just become a wave 1. We'd be looking for a wave 2, and then potentially what we could see is something along these lines, where we see a bigger price movement to the upside here, either towards this 1-to-1 if this is just going to become a bigger A, a B, and a C, or alternatively towards this 1.618 here if this is going to be a bigger breakout where this becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, If we do see a bigger 5-wave structure like this off of this point, it's going to be once again important to see how we react after that. If we get 3 waves down, this could once again mean we could see a continuation to the upside in a bigger way. So that's why I'm just keeping an eye on these ideas of these bullish counts. But if we lose this 24,901, this would invalidate the idea of the diagonal pattern actually playing out. Now, there is another way we could look at this as a potential breakout. And what we'd then be saying is that internally here, what we have is 1, 2, and another 1 and a 2. Now, if this is the case, we have come into this white support box area here, which is between this 50% and the 786 at 27,254 to this 26,524. Now, if this is the case, what this could then mean is that we could have 1, 2, 1, 2, and we're actually looking for a bigger third wave to play out. Now, we'd only get confirmation of this by a move past 30,938, and that would then, in my opinion, confirm this idea of the third wave here, but we'd still have to wait for that fourth and that fifth wave to play out. So it's going to become important then if we do see this wave 3 up towards this 1618 level, we'd need to see whether we get a retracement back to the downside which fails to take this wave 1 high and find support above it before looking for an additional rally. If we do see something like this, this could then align with the idea that we have some extension here, and we'd be looking for the white wave count to play out before getting an additional fourth and a fifth within the blue wave count. Once again, the same idea would be, if this does complete as a bigger 5-wave move, we'd be looking for that confirmation of 3-wave structure back down, looking to hold this low before looking for continuation up. Obviously, we need to see this prove itself. We do have those bearish counts here, but if we do hold above this zone here of this 27,175, we could look for a direct breakout. Now, if we do, however, see this play out as that A, B, and a C pattern, I'm still going to be looking out for this potential to find support in this white box area here. As long as we remain above this low here of this 25,990, we could still see this look to play out as an impulse. Obviously, this would change the targets. If we do look to come back down deeper here, this would change depending on exactly where we see this come in. So we need to just be very careful here with the internals of this move. If we do see price looking to hold these higher levels, we could look for that direct breakout. Now, that direct breakout would look something along these lines. We're going to come into the 1 hourly here. What I'd want to see here is that if this is a direct breakout, I'd be looking at this as our wave 1, be looking at this as a potential wave 2 pattern. Like I said, we've come down between this 382 and this 50%. If we are looking at this as an impulse off of this current target that we have here, which is this low towards this 27,785, what we'd be looking for is a 1.618 would be this 29,710. Now, if we do see something along these lines where this becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, this would then be potentially the next part of this leg here, and we'd have to be very careful then that somewhere within here we don't have an extension. It is possible then, instead of counting this this move to the downside as a wave 2 into here, we could argue that this is wave 2 and then we have another 1, 2 here, and then that could actually mean that this all becomes wave 3, we get 4, 5, and then we'd be looking for that fourth and a fifth. Now, like I said, the main idea here, if we're looking at this as a 1, 2, 1, 2, would be that we need to see price actually breaking back above this 30,950 for more confirmation that this is actually developing into a bigger impulse here. So just as a recap here, if we are looking at the idea of this diagonal, what we'd be saying is that we are saying that this is A, we're looking for B and C. Invalidation is this 27,175. As long as we remain above that, we could see at least another leg to the upside in the C wave. If that C wave just hits the 1-to-1 level, then we could be looking for that bigger retracement. If, however, this move here is a flat, what we'd be then looking for is a break of 24,901, which would invalidate our bullish scenarios. If, however, we continue to hold support above these levels, we can't rule out the idea of this extension. If we do get this extension, this could mean that we are part of this bullish structure here. But until we actually see price moving back above the highs here of this area here, this 31,842 level, effectively, we need to just bear in mind that we still have those higher degree ideas here that we could see price looking to break down. So we need to respect these potential rejection zones that we've got over here. If we are looking for a bigger price action to the upside, we need to see these lows continue to hold and watch this actually step through these levels, as we've talked about in some of the previous videos here. What I'm looking for this idea of a bit more confidence, so we're going to be getting a breakout, would be a move back above this green line, which is sitting here at this 28,477. If we do move back above this, I'm going to be looking out for that potential of a rejection higher up here towards this zone of this 29,462. If we were looking at this, looking to break out in this way, what we'd want to see is price actually move through these levels, potentially retest them, and then start to see price moving away. If we just see price break through these levels, see a bigger retracement, we fail to hold these, and these start to turn back into resistance, this could align with that idea of the bigger flat correction here, where what we're looking for is that possibility that this B wave could still be in play here. We see a push up through these levels and then a bigger rejection down, or alternatively, like I said, until we actually take these highs over here, we do have the other bearish counts that are still possibilities. But as long as we continue to show strength and hold these lows and continue to set higher highs, higher lows more locally here, then potentially there is that possibility of a break to the upside. So we need to just respect both of these counts at the moment and see what price actually indicates to us. Coming in and having a look at the daily CPR lines, we can see that we printed higher CPR lines, but these are also very tightly spread, which is indicating volatility. Now we have seen price move through these levels and actually fail to hold these central lines. If we do continue to reject down here, we're going to be looking at potential targets of 27,753, 27,669, and this 27,573 as potential support zones that we could look to find below us. If we lose these levels, we can always move through these, so we need to just be aware of that. If price starts to be more impulsive, we can just blast through these zones. Alternatively here, if we do look to actually move back above this 27,938 level, this then opens up the potential that we could see price look to move back up into some of our R lines here, which is 28,040, 28,234, and this 28,320. So this would align more with the idea of seeing something like a bigger corrective structure developing here. But if we do start to lose these levels here, we can potentially look to some of the weekly points as possible targets. Now moving over here and having a look at the weekly CPR lines, what we can see is that we are currently still above our central lines. Our central lines are sitting here at this 27,675. 27,335 and this 27k level. So if we do see another push to the downside here, this 27,678 is going to be the next one I'm looking at to see whether we get a reaction. If we lose that level, I would be looking lower down here towards the central line, and then if we lose that level towards this lower line here. Now if we do look to push up today, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this zone, this 28,709, and these other targets 29,437 and this 30,784 if we do see price looking to push to the upside. However, if we start to lose these central lines, other targets for this week could be this 26,649. We have 25,266 and this 24,526 as potential downside targets. Obviously, we will get new CPR lines printed as of tomorrow, so it's going to be important to see where these are and how we react to them, because we are currently still looking at, in the shorter term here, setting higher CPR lines. So this is a good indication in the short term here, but we need to see price continuing to set these higher CPR lines to get more confidence that we are building a bigger move here. Now moving over here onto the monthly pivot points, what we can see is that we are currently still rejecting off of this R1 line here at this 28k. If we do see price looking to push back down, I'm going to be keeping an eye on these central lines, 26,700 to this 26,181 level as a possible zone we could look to come back and test. We can see we haven't had an interaction with these levels yet, which typically means that we're going to see price actually be gravitated towards these zones. Now price can always look to move up and then come back, so we need to also respect that idea, which is why I'm looking out for that possibility of a bigger ABC pattern here, looking for that diagonal, which would then potentially look to push us towards that 29k level. Now, if we do see price, however, start to break down, these central lines are going to become important. If we lose those, I will be looking out for the potential to see support come in here at this 25,424. And if we lose that zone, other targets to the downside for this month would be 23,878 and this 22,843. If we do, however, look to push up past this S2 line here at this 29k, we do have other targets which are sitting towards us 30,559, which would align with coming back up into some of these higher levels here, which would also align with this idea of this bigger flat correction where we could be seeing price looking to move up past the 0.786 level and potentially up into these higher zones. And I'd then be looking out for that possibility of this 31k getting hit. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video. Leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We will see you in the next one. Take care.